Something a little bit different for you today. We are going to have a look back through the comments from the last week or so's of the videos, pick out the really interesting ones that I feel the need to address and see where we go with them. Apologies for the whole green screen business as well. I've just had a marathon Football Manager recording session just for one video. Oh, you need to check that. If you don't regularly watch the Football Manager videos, you should watch the one that's coming out at 4 o'clock today, because it was an ordeal. Goodness me, was it an ordeal. But anyway, enough of that. There have been a lot of videos over the last week on this channel that have sparked interaction and comments from you lot. Not just in the comments on YouTube, but I've had emails, I've had Facebook messages, I've had Twitter messages, I've had people from real life phoning me and texting me and talking to me about stuff that has been on the channel. Obviously the biggest one was the one that came out Monday morning. My hair is awful again. If anyone knows how to cut hair, feel free to pay me a visit or just send me some scissors in the post. Don't send me scissors in the post, but this needs to go. It's too long. But the video, not the birthday we had in mind, the one where we saw Sproglet have a meltdown on the channel for the first time. It's something we had deliberately not included in the channel up until that point, because we didn't want the channel to be somewhere where we say, oh, look at misbehaving autistic kids, ooh, or oh, look at us, we don't know what to do, aren't we terrible, please help us. We didn't want anything like that at all. And when it all started to kick off on Sunday, you'll notice that there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect at the start of the video, where it starts with me on the driveway of my house saying, oh, we're going to my dad's, we're going to give him a present, we don't know if we're going to go in the car or walk. Then the next thing we see is he's already melting down at the side of the road. Now the reason none of that was recorded before then is because he did start to voice his displeasure almost immediately, and up until that point it had never been anything that I'd considered recording to go on the vlog. And it got to the point where he was just sort of crouched down, doing that thing where he was crouched down, walking along, and Alan just turned to me and said, you know what, you should probably be recording this, because we've shown people loads of stuff from one part of autism, and those videos have gone down really, really well, and people are saying that we're giving them an insight into how autism works. And I hate saying that, because this isn't how autism works, this is how he works. Everyone who is autistic, just like everyone who's not autistic, has completely different mannerisms and behaviours, and this is just what's typical for him. But she rightly said, if we're going to show you the obsessions and the chores, like having to drive out to Grantham and Boston to look at churches, and having to do just things that don't seem like a big deal, but they're just things that are noteworthy that we've talked about on the channel. We've shown you the trips to churches. Oh, this is the 5th trip to a church we've been on this week. All that stuff. If we're going to show you all that, we need to show you the other side too. The bit where it's not that, well, it's not fun at all for anybody involved. I mean, and that really comes across in the comments. A lot of people saying they didn't know whether to like the video or not, and I kind of get that. The way I always view it when I'm, this is me saying, go back and like that video from the other day, but the way I always think of it when I'm looking at a video is, if I've watched the video to the end, then I think it deserves a like. Because for me to sit on YouTube, where there's millions upon millions of videos being uploaded all the time, if it's held my interest enough, or if I'm getting enough out of that video to make it to the end of the video, then it was a good video. I don't necessarily agree with the content of the video. I didn't necessarily like the content of the video. It's not me saying I endorse this behaviour. It's just, you know what, that was a video that I'm glad you made, I'm glad you released. Here, have a thumbs up. And it does help the visibility of the video. Bearing in mind, I've not included the word autism, autistic, ASD, anything like that in the tags for that video, because what I didn't want to do, I didn't want it to explode into this big autistic boy has a meltdown video that then went viral or whatever else. So I've deliberately not included any of those tags. I've included stuff like that in some of the other videos. The greatest hour of his life that we did last week, it's got autistic, autism, all that stuff in the tags, because I don't mind people searching for autism and finding that. But this one, it was a lot more personal, and it's giving you more of an insight into our family than we've ever put on the internet before. So I just wanted it to be for the people who already know us. So because of that, deliberately didn't make it very searchable, but I guess via word of mouth it's already spreading anyway, because it's the most popular video we've uploaded in the last month already, and it's only continuing to grow. So I guess we may as well embrace that, get the thumbs up on there. Let's see what happens with it. I hope it doesn't get into the wrong places and generate a whole load of hate coming our way from people accusing us of, I don't know, putting him on the internet as a performing animal or something like that. You lot who watch every day know that's not how it works, and you know there's been a very slow build up to showing you that side of our lives, and I just hope we don't end up getting in the situation where we get a whole load of negative feedback off the back of people who've just found that video and that video alone and don't understand why we made it and why we released it. Because for both of us, but for Anna particularly, I think it's really helped her emotional state reading through the amazing comments from you lot on that video. There's not been even a sniff of negativity in the comments to that video so far. It's all so positive, so supportive, and you lot are awesome. That is fantastic, and I know I've read through those comments a couple of times now. I'm sure she has as well, and I know it's going to be a nice thing to be able to do the next time he has a meltdown, to be able to go back and read all these nice things people are saying about us, about, you know, how we handle it well and how you can imagine being in that situation, and respect and all this stuff. It all does mean a lot, because it is not easy. I mean, I think I've mentioned on yesterday's video, maybe the day before, that that video got cut before it got really hard. He was naked in the back of the car throwing his shoes at me on the way home. So, you know, it got a lot worse before it started to get better. And we showed you the bits that I think we needed to show to get the message across. And I think that's all I need to say about that video. Thank you for the support on it. It has been awesome. Don't expect loads of stuff like that on the channel. It's not going to be the channel you come to for ASD meltdowns. But I think that one needed to be made. So, looking at some of the other videos that were released recently, I did get a comment from somebody about the Tassimo conspiracy. I've had a few comments about it now, actually, recommending going to Asda, because apparently they have buy one, get one free, or 3 for a tenner deals or stuff like that. Amazon subscriptions, which I maintain don't work anymore unless they hold the old prices, because they've certainly increased in price. And somebody did say, it was basically my fault for being an uninformed consumer. If I'd done more research on the non-holiday Tassimo prices, I wouldn't have been able to complain about it. Well, my response to that is, who does that? I mean, this thing was on offer everywhere, and it was cheap. It was like 30 quid for the coffee machine. And I did do as much research as a reasonable human being would do. I'd never owned a Tassimo machine before. I had owned a Dolce Gusto machine. I knew how much Dolce Gusto pods were. I knew you could get a box of pods for like 4 quid. So I walked around Tesco and looked at the coffee section and saw Dolce Gusto pods, 4 quid. Tassimo pods, 4 quid. Yeah, that makes sense. They're about the same price as their major competitor. Have a little look on Amazon. Oh wow, you can subscribe to this for 15 quid for 5 of these packs. That's amazing. That brings it down to 3 quid a pack. That's starting to look really good now. And then we went to Asda and we had a little look. And I went to the Co-op and we had a little look. And everywhere I went, the pods were cheap. Should I have been tracking the price of Tassimo pods for the last 6 months to see what they were outside of the holiday period? Should I have known that they were going to be more expensive than Dolce Gusto, even though I had experience with Dolce Gusto paying that kind of price? I don't know. I still think Tassimo are monsters. This isn't me. I'm not having a go at you, Outlaw Torn. I think you raise a very good point. My response is, I still think it's Tassimo's fault and not mine. The onus shouldn't be on me as the consumer to do that kind of level of research. They should, at the very least, if they are doing a discount on the coffee machines and on the coffee pods, in the same way as the coffee machine had half price and 40% off and all that stuff, was 60 quid, now 35 quid, slapped all over it, and all the promotional stuff on both Amazon and Tesco and everywhere else I looked at the machine. The same thing should have been on the coffee pods. It should have said £3.50, usually £5, 33% off, or whatever it did, and it didn't. It said £3.99, and it just had that there on the shelf right next to Dolce Gusto with the same price. And because of that, I think they deliberately misled me. They're monsters, and I just actually punched myself in the face. I don't know how that happened. Oh, that really hurts. I might give myself a nosebleed. I would have sneezed now. And then to wrap things off, we had the 10 years in the future video that I released yesterday, which I know it was some lofty goals. I haven't had a blow to the head, Steve Archer. I don't want to come back and live on the planet the rest of you live on, though. It sounds really dull. I'm putting out there into the world my dreams, my goals for where I want to be in 10 years' time. How sad a life would it be if my goal for 10 years' time would be, oh, I really hope that I'm earning an extra £5,000 a year against what I'm earning now, and oh, I'd love a good 2-bed semi-detached house with a shed. They're not dreams. That's not a goal. That's just what you end up with if you didn't get the stuff you really wanted. I'm not gonna be desperately disappointed if everything that I said in that video yesterday doesn't come true. I desperately want it all to come true, but I am realistic as well. I know it won't all come true, but if even some of it does, that'd be amazing. It's the whole cliche thing, shoot for the stars and at least you'll hit the moon, or whatever the cliche is. You know, you've got to have massive stretch goals, because A, you might just hit them, and even if you don't hit them, because they're so far away and above what you've previously thought you were capable of, you end up massively overachieving on what you would have done anyway. Some examples. When I started podcasting 7 years ago, never dreamt that within a month I'd be featured on the front page of iTunes in the UK. I was. Started another podcast, the Mature Gamer podcast, the one that's still going now. And this was about 5 years ago now. Never dreamt that within a month we'd be #1 in the games and hobbies chart on iTunes and in the top 100 podcast chart on iTunes overall. We were. Another example, We're From the Internet, which was a podcast we did. It was a daily podcast we did like 2 years ago. Never imagined for a minute that we would end up front page of iTunes, top 100 of iTunes overall. We were top 50 on the comedy chart, the most competitive chart in the whole of iTunes. We made it into the top 50 of that. We got interviewed in the paper. I got recognised in the street because of that podcast, and that podcast was audio only. People recognised my face because they'd read about me in the newspaper because I did a podcast. That was all mental, and I was just this normal bloke doing that from his utility room. Me and Sheepdog were sat around one little microphone doing that stuff. When I started my YouTube channel, I didn't expect 10,000 subscribers within just over a year. I didn't expect to hit 1 million views within less than a year of starting the channel. All of that stuff, if I'd have sat down 7 years ago when I bought my first microphone to do my first podcast, in fact, I've missed one out. Lazy Students Revision Guide. Amazon #1 bestseller in study skills within 2 weeks of the book launching, and it has never fallen outside the top 100 on study skills at all. 2 years on, it's still consistently always in the top 100 Amazon study skills book in the whole of the UK. It's consistently in the top 5,000 books. We're not talking Kindle stuff here, we're talking books in the UK. Now, bearing in mind, there are millions of books on Amazon, and my book, my silly little book that I wrote 2 years ago and self-published, hasn't ever fallen out of the top 5,000. It's higher in the charts than comic books that I read. You know, it was higher in the charts than Batman at one point. There's dozens of Batman books that I'll be higher than in the charts at Amazon. There's classic novels that you would have heard of that I'm higher in the charts than. And if we scale that back 7 years, not even 10 years, because the the targets from yesterday were 10 years in the future, but if we scale my life from now back 10 years ago, 24 years old, I was working as an estate agent, or a mortgage broker and an estate agent. I'd never heard of podcasts. I didn't know you could self-publish books. Did YouTube even exist then? Probably not. And here I am, all that stuff under my belt. And I think if I'd have predicted all that 10 years ago, people would have said I was a nutcase as well. So here I am, still standing by the stuff that I put out there as my goals and dreams yesterday, and fingers crossed I'll have another crazy period of ridiculous runaway successes, and it will all just come up, Kev, because that's what I'd quite like that. That would be pretty cool. This has been a much longer video than it was supposed to be, and I've still got a massive Football Manager marathon to edit. Remember to check that one out later on today. It is a little bit different from anything you've seen on that channel before. And thank you very much for watching and for all your support down in the comments and all that stuff. It is all very cool.